Welcome to Tips for the Transition, where we have deep, meaningful conversations about life. We talk about how significant changes like divorce, grief, and career change can affect us, our family, our relationships, and our work, and how to move beyond them. I'm your host, Maria Tomás-Keegan, certified career and life coach for women, and I'm here to support you through the messy seasons of life so you can answer big questions like who am I now and how do I move on from here? If you're ready to consider new options, be inspired, and meet incredible women who are on this life journey with us, you're in the right place. You'll find something in each episode to give you hope and encourage you to move from panic to powerful, from rocky to resilient, and from upside down to right side up. This is Tips for the Transition. Hi there. I'm so happy you joined us on today's podcast. Welcome. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, your host. And there are a couple of things that I am pretty passionate about when it comes to serving professional women. The first one is to help you create a life and career that is fulfilling. And the second one is to bring you inspiring guests on this podcast. These fantastic women are role models and resources to help you explore different career transition approaches, give you some new practices maybe, and some tips. So if something strikes a chord while you're listening today and you want more information, be sure to check out the show notes below for ways to connect with us, to follow, to subscribe, and if you'd love to leave a review or a comment, we'd love to hear from you. So I have a question for you, as I often do with the podcast. I start with a question. Do you make regular deposits into your savings account or maybe your children's college fund? Or how about putting away money for a vacation? Maybe you put away a certain amount of your paycheck into your retirement fund. Now, these are all great practices to have. But what about you? Do you make daily deposits into your personal bank so that you don't go bankrupt in your joy or your happiness, your well-being, your energy? We're going to talk about banking for your health today with Gina Ramirez. She's a certified health coach, a licensed professional counselor, and a worksite wellness specialist. Now, she knows something about struggling with the loads we carry around mentally and physically because she's been there. And now she helps career women examine what it takes to stop living by impossible standards and start reducing stress to avoid burnout. So I'm delighted to chat with Gina today because we need to elevate this conversation and invite everyone to talk about banking your health. So Gina, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Maria. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm glad you are. This is such an important conversation. We talk about self-care all the time. It's all over the place. But this is I think a great perspective with you about banking your health. I love that. So I want to start with your story, Gina, if we can. Would you share how was it for you that the mental load and probably the emotional load that you carried around created overwhelm and stress and burnout for you? Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, absolutely. This happened to me when my kids were little. I went back to work full time. They were in elementary school, and I was playing mom, doing all of my mom duties at the house, putting dinner on the table, hot dinner on the table, right? Because we want to feed our kids well. I was holding down the fort in the career front, working full time outside the home. And we want to give 100% outside the home as inside the home. And it just became too much, overwhelming. I realized you cannot give 100% in both places. And eventually it took a toll on me, so much so that I fell asleep driving on the highway going 70 miles an hour. My kids had a late guitar practice, and it was to the point where I was so exhausted that I would tell them, just go into your lesson, kids. I'm going to sit in the car and take a nap. No matter how much sleep I got, I was never fully rested, and it became really apparent that there was a problem. When you fall asleep driving on the highway, there's a problem. Fortunately, another car honked at me, and I, was startled awake, and nobody was injured, but it was a definite wake-up call, enough to get me to the doctor's office, that's for sure, because I thought something horrible was wrong with me. Another piece of that puzzle was that my hair was falling out, and I have a lot of hair. There were bald spots in the back of my head the size of quarters, and I didn't even know it. I had my hair pulled up one day, and my husband, was looking at the back of my head saying, "Oh my gosh, your hair's falling out like in clumps." You would think that I would notice and realize over time that things were going south, right? I finally went to the doctor's office, and you're in your primary care physician's office for about 15 minutes max, right? They're there to alleviate the symptoms. I don't think they necessarily dig deep. They don't have time to dig deep. So, they do what they can with the time allotted. And so I got steroid cream for my head to help my hair grow back. Not once did he ask, "How's your life? What's going on? Tell me a little bit more." It was just, here's some medication and hopefully it'll get better. So yeah, big wake up call. And I feel like that's exactly what happens to us, right? That we have these little inklings that something's not right. And over time, your body starts to tell you, okay, you need to slow down. And if you don't, I'm going to do it for you.
That's so true, and what a terrible wake up call. But thankfully, there was no one injured, and somebody beeped at you, noticed what was going on. You're erratic driving or whatever, and you woke up. I can only imagine what that must feel like. Let's talk about this. And the comment about the doctors and the offices in 15 minutes. That's another whole podcast. But tell me a little bit about the emotional ride this took you on. We relate to stories emotionally. So I want just, if you don't mind, can we dig in a little bit about what were the emotions you struggled with as you were starting to deal with this overwhelm and stress and on the verge of burnout?
I think that, as women, like I said, we take on so much because for most of us, if you have a full-time job, you come home to your second shift. And that's all the things that are happening at home. And so we just go from one to the other without taking any kind of break. And I remember looking around at my other, female coworkers thinking, well, they're doing it. Like, why am I having such a hard time with trying to figure this out? Like, why am I under so much stress? And why is this not working out for me? Like, it seems so easy for them. And we get into this whole comparison, which we know comparison is the thief of all joy. So there's nobody to compare to. And I know now that most everybody is feeling the same way and they're just not sharing it. There's so much anxiety to perform, I feel like, not only again in your career, but also at home. So the anxiety level is pretty high. And if you consider women in their, late 30s into their 50s, there's also this hormonal shift happening as well that's creating some of that anxiety. So there's so much going on physically with us during that age. And then to top off all of the psychosocial things that are happening with the career and the family and, all the outside stuff. But yeah, emotionally, it's just feeling like you're never good enough, like you can't measure up. And that anxiety that doesn't go away.
Yeah. You're so right about that. When things start to fall apart and we feel out of control, isn't it odd that we look around us and we look at other women who apparently are doing it so much better than we are. What we don't realize is that they have their own story and they're probably living behind a mask just as you were for
Absolutely.
outward appearance sake, right? And they're struggling themselves. So
Absolutely. And I think we take a lot of pride in that as women too.
yeah,
We take a lot of pride in, hey, our kids are clean and the house looks great
yeah,
and, everybody's fed. So it's also a pride issue.
we wear it like a badge of honor. And that unfortunately it can be our downfall. So you told us about the hair falling out. Were there any other physical symptoms that manifested as a result of what you went through?
Well, I also said I had some nutritional deficiencies going on as well. I've been a plant-based eater for a lot of years, and I was doing all the things that I thought were healthy, getting up really early in the morning to work out because I thought that was, helping me, when in fact the workouts that I was choosing were actually creating more stress on the body, more cortisol, leading to me not sleeping well, me always feeling like I was exhausted. So the things that we think are helping us sometimes are actually hurting us in these areas. So physically, I wasn't doing well and I didn't know it. I didn't know what to do.
We often listen to what everybody else is saying and doing about, the kind of exercise routine we should be doing for our bodies to be healthy, right? Be healthy. What it doesn't take into consideration is our personal circumstance, how our body works, what our body adjusts to, what it responds to, and we're different from everybody else. So finding what works for us, I think, is so important, and that just takes some research and some trial and error. So tell me a little bit about how this whole situation affected the rest of your life, maybe your career, your relationships. What happened in regard to those?
Well, giving 100% in both places doesn't work.
It's
I'm here to tell you.
Yeah.
It's impossible. It's impossible. So, I think a lot of times we want to maybe climb the corporate ladder, or in whatever job that you're in, you're trying to get to the next level. And I had to really take a step back and decide, what do I want here? What's worth it to me? Where are my values, and where am I putting those daily deposits in that are going to make a difference for me? And again, just like you said with the health, everybody's different. Everybody's values are different. And for me, I realized I don't want a high stress, job where I'm go, go, go all the time, or I'm in charge of have a lot of responsibility. My family life is more important. My stress level needed to come down because my adrenals were shot at that point. My relationship, my partner is important to me. We can't both have very high stress, high level jobs where we're needed, right? Or else, again, something has to give. What are you willing to sacrifice there? And those were some hard conversations that I had to have with him. And if I was going to continue to do full-time work, again, another crucial conversation that I had to have with my partner: what has to give here in the house? Like, I can't continue to do 100% and be everything to everyone, right? Because that doesn't work either. Boundaries.
Right. Boundaries. Yeah, we all have to have them. It's a love-hate relationship with them, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, those conversations are difficult to have, but they are so necessary. But I think before we can have those conversations with our life partner, we need to know who we are, how we've changed, what's important to us before we can have that conversation in a way that is, non-confrontational, first of all, and just kind of a matter of fact. This is what's going on with me. This is why I think it's happening. And something has to shift and change here in order for me to feel better and for this, right? The relationship, the family, the balance, the harmony, the career versus the life, all of that can work together instead of work apart, which is really what's happening. Is it's pulling you apart.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
having those crucial conversations are really touchy and difficult because, you've been carrying the load, right? We talk about this idea of mental load and having that second shift. You come home to the second shift and what is on your plate. And for most of us, we don't realize when I say mental load, people think, oh, it's just all the things that I'm doing. Oh, no, friend, it's not only the things that you're doing, it's all the stuff that's going on in your head about the planning and organizing and when do I need to make that vet appointment and who's going to take care of grocery shopping and where's the list and, who's going to pick up the dry cleaning. It's all of those things that are going on in your life that you have been responsible for. And I often tell women, write it out, write it all out before you have that conversation so that they know and this is a lot for one person.
And not only all of the things that are on your plate, right? That list of, excuse me, chores or to-do items, but it's all the things you carry with you from the work, right? From your work life that are still working overtime in your head because you never leave them. You can't flip a switch. Very few people I know can really flip a switch and turn that totally off to focus on the other 100%, which is impossible, right? We have 100%. That's all we get. So how we divide that up, it does not equal 200%. It doesn't. That's just not how we're made. So recognizing that, I think, is so important. So I want to get to the good part of your story that talks about how you moved through it and got to the other side. So tell us a little bit about your success story.
Yeah, so I was talking about recognizing that I had some of those nutritional deficiencies, got that taken care of, and realized the deep connection between the mind and the body. Being a licensed therapist and knowing from, patients and clients that it is so connected. What we put in our body, our thoughts, everything is interconnected, and so we can't take these apart and look at them separately. It really does have to be a holistic approach. And so I needed to do that myself, right? To figure out exactly where is the disconnect for me here. My mind, my body, get them all integrated. And that's what I see most often is people struggling with stress and burnout and thinking I need balance when really I don't subscribe to balance. I know that might sound strange, but I don't think we're ever completely balanced. There's this idea of integration. How do we integrate what we've got for it to make sense for me? And having those crucial conversations is what I needed to do. And recognizing I have all these pieces of my life, whether that's mental, physical, social, spiritual, career. And those are the 5 life accounts that I talk about. So putting these deposits, if you will, into these accounts is what got me to where I am, where I know, okay, I'm getting a little low here. I need to pay attention.
I love that. Having 5 life accounts. So tell me what they are again.
Mental, so your mindset, where things are for you mentally. Are you creating the space that your mind needs? Physical, which is all about food, nutrition, moving your body, sleep, recovery. Social, how are your social connections? Do you have close connections, not only within your family, but with your work environment, in your community? Spiritually, are you connected to something that's grounding you? I don't mean religion necessarily, but what is grounding you in the chaos that is our lives? And then in your career, how are you moving forward? How are you advancing? And what is your work life like? Are you miserable? Do you need to move? Just recognizing where you are.
Right. I love that. It's really helpful, I think, to break things apart like that. I do that with my clients. You have 5, I have 7. I don't think it matters the number, but the idea, right, that you can break things apart so it makes it easier for you to recognize where you are deficient,
Yes,
and
and
what
where there's a disconnect.
and where, yes, where there's a disconnect. Yeah, I so agree with you. You said that there is no balance is not an easy thing to achieve. I don't even talk about balance anymore. I totally agree. It is very hard to achieve, and I think it makes people think like it needs to be this way, and often it feels this way, and that's okay. So I like to talk about it as harmony. So if
Mm-hmm.
all the areas of your life are in harmony, right, you are the conductor of your orchestra, right? And if you've got everybody in harmony, then, or everything in harmony, it doesn't matter whether one is
Right.
here and one is here, as long as at the moment you're doing what you need to be doing to focus on the things that matter most to you in the moment. I think that it's
Exactly.
so helpful to break it up into smaller chunks so that instead of trying to wrestle with the whole thing and not really knowing what's wrong
Right.
or what needs
Right.
attention. Yeah. All right.
And
So
there's
you learned
strategic imbalance.
I'm sorry, say again.
There's strategic imbalance as well. If a family member gets sick, if something happens at work that you need to be pulled in another direction,
Yep.
but it's something that you decide. You decide that I'm going to have strategic imbalance this small amount of time, and then I'm going to get back to, my day to day, putting in these deposits.
Yeah. Yep. What comes to mind for me is as being flexible, being resilient, being intuitive, right? To know when something really you need to kind of deflect some things and pay more attention to others. So you learned a lot of lessons as you went through your journey, right? How did those lessons inform how you live your life now and how you do your work now with other women?
Yeah, I think it comes back to that idea of intentionality, of living with intention and knowing full well what your values, your purpose is. Are you living into those values and purpose? Are you feeling like you're contributing and making a difference in the world in what you're doing? Because I think that adds so much value to, your well-being as well. If you're thinking about all of the places that you add value, we all have a gift. And so we need to be using that not only in our careers, but in our home life too. And finding yourself, where is your gift and are you using it? So that really does inform the way that I work with women and choosing that word of inspiration and intentionality and getting really crystal clear on what's important to you. Not to say that those things aren't going to change either, because as we age and go through different life stages and our kids age, things change. You have more time. Things look different in your life. And so you will also begin to evolve and change. And that's a good thing.
Oh, that is such a good thing. It is such a good thing. So long as we're learning the lessons along the way, right, and applying them, you use the word integrating them into your life, so it works for you, right? So I think the work I do with women, I find a lot of women, what they're doing isn't working for them yet. They're doing it and they continue to do it because that's what's expected of them. So they're living by compromising their own values, living up to other people's expectations. And I think that's the way it needs to be. And if you really examine who you are and what it is you want, it's not the way it needs to be. You have choices. You have choices and options to explore. So I love that. I love the way you came to the path that you chose to go on that helped you break up your life into those 5 segments and pay attention to each one of them as your life evolved.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great path.
Absolutely. And figuring out, where do I fit in all of that? Can I rate myself? And I will often ask the women that I work with, rate yourself 1 to 3 or 1 to 5. Give yourself a rating in each of the life accounts. Are you deficient? Are you bankrupt? And where do we need to focus? Because we're not going to focus on all 5 at the same time. That would be overwhelming. It creates all kinds of more anxiety, which is not what we want to do. So just focus on 1 at a time.
And this idea of banking for your health, right? It's the whole idea here is to do something every day that puts a deposit into one of those accounts so that tomorrow you are feeling stronger, more resilient, more confident, happier, more joyful, whatever it is you want. Making those deposits into those accounts is really
exactly it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone's different. Your bank, I call it your piggy bank, right? Your piggy bank looks different. It might not be a pig, it might be a rabbit, might be whatever, right? It's different. You get to choose what your account looks like and what kind of deposits are right for you. And they may be different than other people's. So this whole idea of comparison is it's a bad thing to do. It's not, it doesn't serve us.
So true. And you can do one activity could put a deposit in each account. I had one gal who, it was during COVID time, and so she was working from home, super stressed out. The kids were home because COVID time, right? Her spouse was home working from home, so everybody was home and it was chaotic. But she made a point to close up the laptop, go for a walk outside. So she was giving herself that mental break, getting outside physically, into nature with her family, so socially connected. Spiritually, she felt like she was connected by being outside in nature and taking a break from all the chaos of work. So putting into that one activity puts a deposit in each of these accounts.
Right. Figuring out what that is for you is so important. All right. Well, we end every episode with tips from my guest. That's why we call the show Tips for the Transition, the Career Roadmap. So I would love for you to share your first tip with us, if you would, Gina.
Yes. Well, my first tip is to stop being alone, get into community, because I feel like we so often, again, compare and think, why are they doing it better than me? Or why is this not working out for me the way it should? And we're just looking at everybody else in silence. We never speak out. We never ask for help. And so I say get in community. And if you don't have a community, join my forum for professional women. We've got a community on Facebook.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And so, you know, we're not born into this world to do it alone. We don't come into it alone, hopefully. And we shouldn't be trying to do it alone. It's harder. It's harder to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So make it easier on yourself, right? I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No lone wolf stuff going on here. That's a great first tip. I love it. What's your second one?
My second tip is to recognize what's going into your mind and your body. So keep track of what the input is, whether that is self-talk, whether that's food, whether that's the people that you allow into your life. Because again, like I said at the very beginning, this is all connected, the mind, body, behavior piece. So what I'm thinking is going to affect my physiology and how I feel, which in turn is going to affect my behavior. And same with food, what I'm putting in my body is going to affect how the output of, everything that I'm thinking and doing.
I love that. Keep track. I think keeping track, if you're not used to doing that, a really good way of doing that is writing it all down. So not only what are you putting in your body, right? What are you eating each time you have a meal or a snack, and just being aware, right? And making some kind of assessment, whether that was a good thing, maybe not such a great thing, making a choice then that, okay, I did that today, I'm not going to do that tomorrow, kind of thing. And the same thing with your thoughts. What's going in? Who are you've mentioned, who are you surrounding yourself with? It's so important to be surrounded by people who are positive and have your back and you trust and they uplift you, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have a third one?
I do have one final tip, and that is sleep. Oh my gosh. People ask me all the time, where should I start? I'm a hot mess my whole life. And as a health coach, I always start with sleep, which may be surprising, right? You're thinking, well, shouldn't I start with nutrition or shouldn't I start with moving my body? No, we can't think about anything until we are getting our sleep under control and you have enough energy, because sleep is the washing machine for your brain, and we can't think clearly. We don't have the energy to do what we need to do unless we are recovering and allowing our bodies to recover in the right way. So start with sleep, get 7 to 9 hours if possible. I know that may sound like a lot for some people, but I don't like to sacrifice sleep. Sacrifice something else.
You are so right. I know that if I don't get for me, it's 7 to 8 hours. 8 is better. If I don't get that, I just can't think clearly. I just feel lethargic and I'm not at my best. So starting there, it's such great advice. That's so good. Start with sleep. Sacrifice something else. Sacrifice something else. It might be hard to figure that out, but it's worth it. It's worth figuring out. Yeah. For me, it was just going to bed a little earlier.
Yeah, that works.
It's easier for me to control what time I go to bed than what time I get up, because I have so much to do in the morning before I start my work day, because of my responsibilities. So it's easier for me to I decided to go to bed a half hour earlier, and that made a big difference for me.
Yeah, so yeah, that's awesome.
Don't sacrifice your sleep. Love that. Gina, thank you so much. I really appreciate your being here. Sorry we had that little voice or audio glitch in the middle there for a minute or two. But this is such an important subject, I think, for people to just explore for themselves. So I am sure there are going to be people who are listening and watching who want to reach out to you directly. Can you share with us the very best way for them to do that?
That would be my website, wellnesswithgina.com. Yes.
All
And you
right.
can also reach me with the freebie that you guys are getting, should be in the show notes, with Professional Women and the Mental Load. These are just life hacks, get immediate relief from all the things in your life, and it has to do with food and organization and planning and time management. So you can download those as well.
That's great. More free tips from Gina. And she's right. The link for those will be in the show notes. So take a look at that, reach out to Gina, and have a conversation if you are struggling with any of the stuff we talked about today. Gina, thank you again so much for being here.
Thank you. This was fun.
Good. I'm glad. I was happy to have you. And for those of you who are watching and listening, I appreciate that you're a part of this community. And if you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to leave a comment or a review, and if there is a star rating, pick a star. We would love to hear from you. And as I said at the top of the show, I love creating and sharing resources for professional women who feel stuck in their careers. So if something in this episode resonates and you'd like a fresh perspective on what you're going through, reach out. Let's have a chat. You'll find a link to my private Facebook group, the Career Transition Roadmap. We can have that conversation there. Gina has a group. You could have the conversation there. It doesn't matter. Just have the conversation, because reaching out for community, as Gina said, is so important. So I'd love to meet again next time, same time on Wednesdays, because I believe it's our time to thrive. So let's thrive together. Till next time, I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, helping you turn transition into triumph.